Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing my climb to reach Legend rank in Season 21 of Pokemon GO Battle League. Now, I was actually able to hit Legend while live on stream, which is always a fun experience. Today, I'm going to be showcasing the teams that I used to get there. To start the day, I ran a team in the Ultra League, and it honestly performed great, but unfortunately, I quite literally ran out of opponents, so for the last set, I did have to switch to Color Cup. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's take a look at my Legend run from Season 21 of GO Battle League. Hopping into the first match, picking up a Nightmare lead Drifblim into Aurorus. I'm going to safe switch into Primeape, and my opponent is going to respond with Tentacruel. Tentacruel, of course, not a fun Pokemon for Primeape to see, but Primeape does have an energy advantage and a massive pacing advantage as well. Rage Fist after Rage Fist fired off by the Primeape. I know that if I can flip switch, hopefully I can be in a pretty decent position. So I'm going to shield and I'm going to try and make a play for swap. Close combat will do a lot more. I farm up to the close combat to threaten it, maybe try and force a shield, but my opponent will not fall for it. Instead, they're going to survive the last Karate Chop on 1 HP, so I'm able to win switch, but I had to give up 2 shields to do so. In comes Annihilate. They're going to have to deal with an incredibly boosted Primeape. I'm now 4 stages boosted, so this means that even though I had to go down 2 shields very early in the game, I should be able to get them right back. So just like that, we're at shield parity, but I'm going to have to deal with an energy advantage Annihilate. This should have been a triple hard counter game, but Primeape is a menace, and flipping switch advantage now puts me in a position where I might be able to win. They're going to go for the +1 Rage Fist, but this is a fully maxed out Drifblim. We're able to tank it and make it to the Icy Wind as well. This Icy Wind is going to get them very low, and we see a simultaneous switch Virizion into Aurorus. Now you may notice this is not your normal Virizion. This is a Virizion without Sacred Sword. Instead, I'm running Stone Edge for extra coverage. Now here, I will go for the Stone Edge. It's going to pick up the KO. In comes Annihilate. Annihilate is able to outpace the Virizion. And now the question is, can Drifblim survive boosted counters? The answer is yes. And despite basically being triple hard countered, we're able to fight back and take the win. Drifblim versus XL Malamar in the next match. Malamar has the ability to hit this entire team for super effective damage. Even so, honestly, Drifblim can do very, very well here. Drifblim is going to shield up the foul play, farming up to the Shadow Ball, and baiting with the Icy Wind. The Icy Wind into the Malamar is going to be no shielded opponent, is going to save switch to a Shadow for Alligator, and honestly, I froze. I should have just brought in the Virizion right away, but I wasn't fast enough, and now I'm in quite a lot of trouble. I'm going to go for the Icy Wind bait. My opponent should throw 4 and the move here, so I'm going to throw 2, wait the turn, and get the catch and sneak onto Virizion. That is absolutely massive. Without that huge catch, I probably would have been completely lost, but getting that catch might give me a way back into this game. I go for the Leaf Blade, opponent is going to let it go, down goes for Alligator, and their final Pokemon is revealed to be Shadow Walrein. So, the good news is, they're very weak to my fighters in the back. Leaf Blade is going to be shielded, Walrein farming up, and they're going to throw at the last second right before I get to my next move. Icicle Spear will pick up the KO, in comes Primeape, and I know that Primeape in the Ultra League has a lot more bulk than it does in the Great League, so I can tank a Shadow Icicle Spear very fine, and now I can just look to farm up. So I will farm up a ton of energy, firing off the close combat at the Walrein. This will pick up the KO, and even though I'm debuffed and low, I have enough HP to withstand the Psy Waves, make it to the close combat, KO Malamar, and take the win. Hopping into the next match, Drifblim versus Zygarde. Basically, every Zygarde team out there is core broken by Drifblim. A lot of people run Zygarde plus Gastrodon, Zygarde plus Tenta, and those cores just get completely destroyed by Drifblim. So anytime you see a Zygarde staying in, you're going to be in a pretty nice position. My opponent decided to shield up the first move, so I decide to shield back. I'm going to overfarm by 1 and try and go for a CMP tie, but my opponent is not going to fall for that. Instead, they're just going to go for the extra fast move, and they are double shielding in this matchup, so they are clearly terrified of Drifblim. Drifblim is going to be able to tank the crunch. That's not going to be a problem, and here I'm going to overfarm by 1, watching for a potential catch, and now I get to land the Icy Wind, winning switch advantage and shield advantage. But I'm probably going to be pivoting into Primeape. They send in Tapu Fini, and I am going to be pivoting out. The reason being, if they have a second anti-fighter, I need to bait it out, and Primeape is more flexible than Virizion. Tapu Fini, not a Pokemon you see too commonly anymore. After Surf did get more expensive, I am going to commit the Shield, and in the back, oh my goodness, the fact that I pivoted out puts me in such a good position, because now I have a boosted Primeape against the Tentacruel. I now get to fire off a double boosted close combat. This does a lot more than a boosted Rage Fist would. Look at that damage right there. And we've got them deep into the red. They go for the Scald, going for an undercharge, but now I can very comfortably bring in Virizion, make it to the Leaf Blade, knock out the Tentacruel, and then all that's left is going to be the Tapu Fini. And Tapu Fini, while they can survive a Leaf Blade, it's not going to be by much. I even get to overfarm slightly because they're just not close to a Nature's Madness. Leaf Blade is going to get them much too low. The opponent will be able to fire off a last second charge attack here. It's the Nature's Madness. Virizion still does not get knocked out. Virizion, what an absolute beast, knocking out Tapu Fini and securing the victory. We move to the next game, and it's like looking at a mirror. Drifblim versus Drifblim. I do run a very bulk-oriented XL Drifblim, which means I'm basically always going to be losing the CMP tie. I decide to shield the first. Honestly, I think the better play is probably to let the Icy Wind go, and then you can look to try and land a Shadow Ball. But here, my opponent is actually going to catch the Icy Wind onto a Shadow Drapion, and that makes things quite complicated. I send in the Primeape. The good news is since they're debuffed, these Aqua Tails are going to be doing less than nothing. I look to farm up quite a bit, and I'm going to be unleashing the close combat at the Drapion on the CMP tie. They will commit the shield, and I decide, you know what, I am going to be shielding back. They're, of course, going to be 4 to the Aqua Tail. This time I don't want to CMP tie. I want the ability to catch out of this if at all possible. So what I'm going to do is fire off the close combat before they get their energy. They send in Drifblim. I'm going to pivot into my own. And in the back, they have Pangoro, and this looks like a very winnable game. They are weak to fighting in the back. I have double fighters. This Pangoro is going to do the absolute maximum perfect overfarm. Night Slash is going to be able to pick up the knockout, but then they get the boost. Oh, that is not good. Their attack is now at +1. I send in Virizion. Virizion is going to be hit with a boosted close combat. That does so much damage. And unfortunately, they're going to make a last-second move, and I think that sinks me, as now I'm too low, and I can't get to the Stone Edge, so I go for the Leaf Blade here. The Leaf Blade is no-shielded, and I lived the Astonish. I could have made it to the Stone Edge, and knowing I was one off a move on Primeape, it's highly likely they would have no-shielded the Stone Edge, so unfortunately, I could have won that game, but I just didn't trust in Virizion to tank that move. We see a terrible lead in the next match, leading Drifblim into Shadow Steelix. I safe switch into Primeape, and my opponent is going to respond with a Dragon Breath Giratina. The most common trio with the Steelix plus Dragon Breath Giratina pairing is Confusion Cresselia. It's basically just a triple bulk team. And if it's Confusion Cresselia, then this is not going to go very well for me, as of course I have a Virizion in the back. So I'm playing this out, but honestly, I don't have very high hopes for this game because I'm expecting to be met with a Cresselia. My opponent does actually give me shield advantage, which is nice. I'm going to send in Drifblim and just look for a full Astonish farm down. Astonish, of course, going to hit hard in just about every single situation. So I do get a nice farm down, and in comes the Steelix, and I will go for the Shadow Ball right away. Shadow Ball will inflict some serious damage. I just want the damage before I send in Virizion, and in the back, it's going to be Drifblim, and this is going to be a tough game to win. But this situation right here is why we have Stone Edge, because the Stone Edge is able to land the opponent. Normally, Drifblim shields everything before an Icy wins, but they're saying to themselves, it's a Virizion. I don't have to respect it. Unfortunately, I can't make the Stone Edge before they get a second debuff applied to me, and now this is going to be a very difficult game to win. I farm up extra, going for the Stone Edge, expecting them to just let it go and try and win the game with the Steelix. They send in the Steelix, I'm going to bring in the Drifblim, and the threat of a potential Icy Wind forces their hand. I think they may have gotten that farm down, but they didn't trust it. Instead, they ended up firing off a move, and now they don't have the energy to beat the Virizion. They go for the Breaking Swipe, fishing for a debuff, but even if they went for the Psychic Fangs, they were not getting that farm down, as I get the back-to-back Leaf Blades. And even though, again, another match where we're basically triple countered, this team is able to find a way and take the win. Driplim versus Weezing. Galarian Weezing is a problem Pokemon for this entire team. So anytime you see Weezing, it's going to be a very difficult fight. Weezing, of course, so spammy, only 4 Fairy Winds to the Brutal Swing. They are going to make it 2 back-to-back Brutal Swings here, firing off the second one before I even get my Shadow Ball. And now I am very low. I go for the Shadow Ball. Opponent is going to make a catch onto Feraligatr. Feraligatr takes a ton of damage. In comes Virizion, and suddenly I see a vision. I'm going to go for a 1-shield farm down. If I get the shield call right, and I do, they're not going to make another Ice Beam. They're only going to make a Hydro Cannon, and I can actually threaten this Weezing with Stone Edge. If I had the usual Virizion moveset, I would be completely walled here. Weezing would be able to take 3 moves very comfortably. But now, I can land the Stone Edge, and suddenly, I am very much threatening Weezing, something that Virizion can normally never do. I'm expecting they'll try and CMP tie, so when I get the move, I switch into Drifblim, I don't get the catch, in comes Zygarde, and I get the Icy Wind. Now that right there is actually not damage registration error / new mechanic. They were only on turn 1 of the Dragon Tail, so I should always get that move off 100% of the time. And now they're debuffed. I can send in Primeape. Primeape gets hit with a debuffed Bulldoze, and I've got to say, even though Bulldoze did get reworked, it's still a truly terrible move. Most Zygardes, I think, are better off on Crunch and Outrage. And now I get to land the back-to-back close combats. This should be good night to the Zygarde. Zygarde gets KO'd. In comes Weezing. Weezing forced to throw energy, and I can just shield up. I have a move loaded on Virizion, but I also have a move loaded on the Primeape, so I can shield, win the CMP tie, denying their energy, KO with a Rage Fist, and they're going to concede the match. Unfortunately, I did run out of queues in the Open Ultra League, waited about a half hour without any games, so for the remainder of these battles, I will be in the Color Cup. Now this Color Cup team I do think is a very good one. The one caveat is run Shadow Kingdra. I don't have a Shadow Kingdra on my account, but this team would be substantially better with Shadow Kingdra. I'm able to get the bait and successfully shield the nuke, which is massive. Here, I'm going to overfarm a ton, and my opponent is going to make a perfect catch, catching the Energy Ball onto Toxapex. But I have a very hard counter to Toxapex in the back, so I'm more than happy to rebank the energy on Abomasnow and send out Unova Stunfisk. Unova Stunfisk is going to do a great job at shutting down Toxapex. These poison jabs are so heavily resisted, and even if they make multiple brines, I can tank 2 brines. That's very okay. The discharge is going to land, getting them low. They are going to make another brine, but now I can look to commit to a Thundershock farm down. Opponent has other ideas. They're going to switch out into Jumpluff, denying the farm down, and now I know why they stayed in. They were ABA weak to Abomasnow. I do think Abomasnow is unbelievably good in this meta. Of course, it can't deal with the fires whatsoever, but outside of the fires, it has so much play into the many grasses and waters that do exist in this format. I'm going to farm up a ton with the Abomasnow, again playing to the CMP tie because Abomasnow has the higher attack stat. Weather Ball is going to pick up the KO. They still do have that Toxapex. I'm looking for the farm down, but the opponent not going to let that happen. They're able to deny the farm down with a well-timed snipe on an Aqua Tail, and now I can bring in Kingdra. And Kingdra is able to survive a Shadow Stone Edge. This is one instance where having a regular Kingdra is actually nice because I do live that pretty comfortably, and I'm able to get the full farm down and take the win. Although again, Shadow Kingdra is so much better. I just do not have a single one on my account. We move to game number 2, and it's actually the same lead as last game, leading into Quagsire. Opponent is going to save switch into their own Abomasnow, and they are actually running the Shadow. I'm going to fire off the Weather Ball. Normally, the regular Abomasnow does run Icy Wind, but I like Weather Ball purely from a pacing perspective. As the pacing of Weather Ball, you just get to so many moves. Now here, my opponent is going to land the Icy Wind, and Icy Wind, what I didn't know at the time, actually sets them up for a farm down. I thought I would get another move, but that's a massive miscalculation on my part. I'm going to send in the Kingdra, and I'm going to be hit with some heavy damage here. They go for the Icy Wind. I do get the farm down, but now I very much have to hope that Unova Stunfisk is going to be able to sweep in the endgame, because I'm not going to get a lot of value out of Kingdra. In comes the Quagsire, and thank goodness they send it in, but the issue that I'm going to have is I'm debuffed here, so even if I land an Outrage, it's not going to do a ton of damage. They are on Mud Bomb with the Quagsire, and I decide I'm going down with the ship here. If this bait is called, I Octazooka bait, I get the shield, and I get the debuff, and that is absolutely massive. Now, I am going to commit the shield. I'll just have to watch for a catch. They send in Toxapex. I get to bank the Outrage, and send in Unova Stunfisk. And that should just be a one game for me. As having the Outrage, I know that I'm going to win the CMP tie over that Quagsire, and this is just such a commanding matchup for Unova Stunfisk, and one of the reasons why I did really like having it on the team. Not only does it do a great job at shutting down Toxapex, but it also shuts down the fires as well. Brine after Brine is going to connect, and here I intentionally farm up to the back-to-back Mud Bombs. The reason being is because I can throw this Mud Bomb at the Quagsire, and I'm guaranteed to have a 0-turn switch out into the Kingdra now. So I can switch in instantly, combo play with the Outrage, and they just don't really have any time to react, so the Outrage KOs, and that's back-to-back wins with this team. For game 4, I accidentally briefly queued in with the Golem double grass team. I didn't find an opponent, so I quickly back out, and I queue in with the right team, the Abomasnow team. But look at this. The game gives me the Golem team, and I lead into a Gastrodon. That is so bad. I save switch a Moongus. They simultaneously switch out into Typhlosion, but here they make a very curious play. They go for a Thunder Punch. I guess to guarantee the ability to farm down, but in doing so, I don't have to shield a Thunder Punch, and I'm more than happy to just take shield advantage and try and play this out, because I've baited out the Typhlosion, and now I have to trust in my Jumpluff to sweep this game. In comes Golem. Golem is going to be hit with a Blast Burn. This is a resisted move, but it's not going to look resistant. Golem gets absolutely rocked, hanging on 1 HP and a Wild Charge. I send in Jumpluff. In the back is Talonflame, and unfortunately this is over. If I was running my OG team, I would be hard countering them, but instead they're hard countering me. But they make a bit of a misplay. They should have thrown sooner, as I'm actually able to cycle reset them here. Now they're at 100 energy, which means they have to throw on alignment and give me a free Fairy Wind, or go over 100 energy. They're actually going to throw on alignment twice. Very interesting. I am going to commit both shields, throw 2 Fairy Winds, and go for the Aerial Ace. Aerial Ace would be able to pick up the knockout here. Opponent is going to shield. I bank the Aerial Ace, snipe with the Wild Charge on the Golem, and they're getting KO'd. Down goes Talonflame. In comes Gastrodon. Gastrodon 2 away from the move, but I get to the Energy Ball, and even though the game picked the wrong team for me, and we were triple hard countered, it does not matter. We fight back, and we're able to take the win. Our final game is not going to be an easy one, going up against Colin 6, but we have a good lead leading into Gastrodon. He save switches into a Dragon Breath Shadow Charizard. My guess is trying to bait people into sending out their Kingdras, but I'm going to save my Kingdra for later and send out Unova Stunfisk. Stunfisk, these Thunder Shocks tearing this Charizard to shreds. Charizard full sends the Blast Burn, so I will overfarm slightly, go for an Undercharge on the Discharge, but even an Undercharge is still going to knock out. Back in comes the Gastrodon. The good news for me is that Gastrodon's energy doesn't really go anywhere against Abomasnow. I'm 1 off the Mud Bomb here, and I actually get Mud Bomb number 2, so I get the damage registration error, which does not happen very often for me, so I'm happy to finally get it for once. I send in the Abomasnow. Abomasnow is going to be met with a Body Slam, and in the back, it's Toxapex, and I bring out Kingdra. So it turns out that it was actually a Ufisk bait out. And that honestly is going to complicate things. They build up to the Sludge Wave. I shield and I get baited with a Brine. That is very unfortunate. I will be firing off the Outrage right before my opponent is able to make it to the Sludge Wave. Outrage is going to be shielded. Opponent is going to overfarm by 2, and they're going to unleash the Sludge Wave. That's going to pick up the KO. I send in the Abomasnow, and I know as long as I overfarm by 1, which I do, I'm in a winning position here just based on their energy remaining on the Gastrodon. Because Gastrodon can connect with a Body Slam, but it will not KO. They're going to be 2 Mud Slaps away, and I'm only 2 Powder Snows away from that Weather Ball, so I'll be able to take the win. And that is going to secure Legend rank for Season 21 of Go Battle League. My final stats, 533 wins, 920 losses, a 58% win rate, and we're able to claim the set, getting our pose and our elo at 3,016. All in all, I think these are 2 very strong teams for each of the leagues that you can use to gain elo. For the first team, you can definitely use a Virizion with Sacred Sword. It would also help if you run into the Mirror team like I did once and actually lost because I did not have Sacred Sword. As far as the Color Cup team, I definitely think Shadow Kingdra would dramatically outperform the regular Kingdra. I just don't have one. I'm really hoping that it comes back in a future Rocket event, because if so, I will be grinding it to finally get one. But for the time being, unfortunately, I am Shadow Kingdra-less, so the regular Kingdra, even though it's a lot worse, is what I had to work with. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you enjoy watching content like this, consider supporting the channel by leaving a like on the video or subscribing to the channel if you haven't. I do want to give a special thank you to the wonderful channel members we have here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.